everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. My name is Rebecca Yager, and the other Rebecca in this dynamic duo is Rebecca Reed. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, hanging in there today. Everything good in Indiana?
It is. It's very nice today.
Wonderful. Well, as you may know, Rebecca and I love books. We love talking about books. We love reading books. We love writing books. But I think today we're doing our very, very favorite thing, or it's come to be our very favorite thing, and that's talking with other authors. And our author today is Elizabeth Goddard. Elizabeth, how are you?
Good. And everything's great in Washington.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me tell the folks a little bit about you, and then we'll dig into this. Elizabeth Goddard is a USA Today best-selling and award-winning author of more than 50 novels, including Cold Light of Day and the Rocky Mountain Courage and Uncommon Justice series. Her books have sold nearly 1.5 million copies. She is a Carol Award winner from ACFW and a Reader's Choice Award winner and a Daphne du Maurier Award finalist. When she's not writing, she loves spending time with her family, traveling to find inspiration for her next book, and serving with her husband in the ministry. So yeah, we all stop at the 1.5 million copies sold when every author's dream, I think, to do that. But 50 books, I hope we all get that way someday. So I have to start off to ask you, I didn't know you were so musically inclined, or used to be. I read your list of instruments: piano, guitar, cello, violin.
Yeah. They're all in my living room too. And so I just look at them and go, one of these days, one of these days. And my favorite instrument really is cello. I played that in the high school orchestra. If you've ever looked back and thought of something that you regret in your life, and that one of the things that I regret is giving that up. I just loved being in the orchestra, but you don't know what you want to do when you're young and you just go off in a different direction. But I keep thinking, well, maybe when I'm in heaven, I can play the cello because, deadlines in life, it's just so busy and I never get time to just sit down and do that. But one of these days I will get back to all my instruments. It's just been a long time.
Do you find it helpful though to have another creative outlet? Because we are creatives here, but I can't just do writing. I gotta.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know a few years ago I took a break. I should be writing. I don't know if you're like this too, but when you are in the middle of a deadline, sometimes you procrastinate and then you just go do something else. You just have to do it, and your mind is processing the book. But I learned how to make all kinds of bread. I bought all these books and I just learned how to make baguettes and boules and French bread and just sourdough and just taught myself how to do it. I was just making crazy amounts of bread, and it was all just that creative outlet because I have a book too.
I think
Yeah.
baking and cooking is therapy too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
To do that. But yeah, I think you do, because you always are thinking about the book. I mean, even when we step away, and I think some writers, especially beginning writers, I think feel a little guilty. Well, I should be at my computer the whole time. And it's like, no, sometimes you need to go take that walk or
Yeah, that's when I find that a lot of times if I go do the dishes or do some mundane task, a problem that I have not been able to figure out, the answer will come to me. And it just seems like, wow, it was just so clear. Why couldn't I see it when I was staring at the book, right? But you just have to go do the other things to give your mind time to process. So I consider everything I do during the day part of writing, part of the process.
I like that. I like that. So I loved another thing. You said that you were also very interested in science, both what with marine biology, NASA. Who was
Yeah. I wanted to, everybody's got their dream of what they wanted to be or thought they wanted to be. And funny because I kind of wanted to be an astronaut, but this was way before the internet. And my dad told me that they had stopped that program. I think he told me that, and maybe it was true at the time, I don't know, but I just like, oh, so I just moved my attention to marine biology. But you can see how I had posters of the moon and planets and the galaxy on my walls, and I also had posters of the ocean and ocean creatures. So I just loved really probably the unknown, right? I'm thinking, what do these things have in common? So I was going to pursue marine biology and I picked out college and everything, but I took at the junior college, I took scuba diving, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do this because I don't know. It was just terrifying to me. It's such a thinking sport. I mean, if you make one mistake, you're dead. And I don't know. I couldn't even get certified. My instructor said, you're going to have to take this many more times before, because I was so nervous. So I think it's kind of fun that now all of my adventure, everything I want to do, I can just research and put it into a story and live it that way, right? It's, what is it called? The armchair adventurer. I can be safe while I'm scuba diving. How about that?
No, I like
I
that
wondered,
because oh, go ahead, Rebecca. Sorry.
yeah, I was going to say because, scuba diving played a large role in this book. So I wondered if it was your personal knowledge or, how much of it was personal and how much of it was just research because, you can't always tell the difference. Some people are really good at just kind of putting that research knowledge in there and making it seem really real, but often it is better to have at least a little bit of personal knowledge because you can
Right.
kind of to know what's important and what's not and how it exactly works. So yeah.
Right. And how it feels. I think that the main thing I took away from scuba diving is I didn't realize that you could feel claustrophobic. I mean, you're in a huge body of water. How could you feel claustrophobic? But that's when this is your only source of oxygen, and it's just right here and the bubbles are going up. And I don't know, it's this fear of being closed in. I thought it was just me, but I've read and talked to other people who that was the same feeling that they got. So you wouldn't know that, right? Unless you
Right.
experienced.
Well, it seems that way to me.
Yeah, it's not too hard to imagine that feeling when I think about doing it. I've never done anything like that, but I've had friends who were certified and they've talked about things like that before too, some of the difficulties of it. But I thought, your descriptions were really good because, and of course your characters, one had that feeling of claustrophobia and the other one was less so. And so it really kind of, they played off of each other in that way too. And it was really interesting to read it. I thought it was very realistic. So that's why I was like,
So glad you
wondered
think
about
that.
it.
Kind of funny because it's just actually it's a, like you said, it plays a big role, but it's actually kind of a small piece when you think about the whole book. And I actually forgot that was in there. You forgot. Oh yeah, they went scuba diving. I forgot.
Well, both of them did. You're both your hero and heroine, and we are talking Cold Light of Day to clarify
Yes,
for the
definitely.
crowd
Right.
here.
Because I have other scuba diving books too, but yeah.
Well, specifically, I mean, I do want to talk about all your books, but we specifically read Cold Light of Day.
Mm-hmm.
And Alaska seems to be a setting. It's for a lot of authors right now. It's trendy. Now, have you traveled to Alaska yourself, or was this?
I just use all of my people that have, and my husband and his family, and it's been my dream, and we keep trying to plan to do the Juneau cruise, and then I know one year we were really talking about it, and then COVID hit, but we could plan. And so excuse me, I live in the Pacific Northwest, and the area that I'm writing about is the Southeast Alaska, and so much of that environment is very much the same environment. It changes. There's a lot more mountains as you go north, and there's more different kinds of wildlife. But I, rely on my sources, my experts, and I do an absolute ton of research. And I'm very passionate about my settings. Settings actually inspire me to, whenever I'm going to write a story, it's usually the setting that comes first. I'm like, oh, I just had a story there. And I'm not sure, I have to maybe change it up for my publisher because I'm always saying, what about this setting or what about that setting? I'm not sure they're going, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it does the same thing for them as it does for me, but so I put, everything into trying to make sure I get it all right and just show God's creation, showcase his creation, right?
Absolutely. Well, one thing Rebecca and I both commented on is that we liked the town of Shadow Gap. It was like an extra character. So it goes with just what you said, because you did really reflect that in writing in the book. We loved Shadow Gap. I want to go to the Lively Moose. I want to go. I'm ready to go hang out.
Yes.
What about the rabbit raccoon? Have you thought about that one? Go in
Well,
there.
we'll try the lively moose first. See how that goes. Yeah, the name of the town was perfect for the book too. I thought it really reflected, the theme and how it, a lot of things were going on, and it was so hidden. Everything was all about the hidden, and there was always, the secret, and then you kind of found out one secret, and then there were three more hiding behind that one, and I really enjoyed that. That piece of the plot too. I like that that's kind of my favorite type of plot, is when you've got all these little, like, smaller twists. I mean, some people like this big huge twist, but I kind of like a lot of those little smaller ones, and then there's little things hiding behind. It's almost like, those flap door things that you can, like, lift up and, like, see what's
Mhm.
behind it, and then I thought it was kind of like that. It was really fun.
Yeah,
Good.
I liked what you said. We were talking about Greer. Let's get to the guy. Let's talk about the hunky hero here
Yeah.
on that, because he was a mysterious man, and obviously, when the readers meet him, he's got skills, and you can see that right away. But
Mhm.
there's all these
Yep.
hidden the secrets about him, and I do like what you said. That one reviewer mentioned that she thought she had Greer all figured out, but when the truth was revealed, she was very wrong, and she
She was like,
appreciated that.
I didn't, no, I didn't know. No. And yeah, that was fun. I really loved writing his character. I loved, we try to ask a question at the beginning of a book, that's going to carry readers along. But I also pose the question of, who is Greer? And we have this big question, but we want to know who the character is. And a lot of times we want to show the readers who they are, so they can root for them. I just wanted to do something different. I like to change things up, so my readers can get a different experience. I mean, the same, they know what they're getting from me, but different.
Right.
And I wasn't sure that my editor was going to go for it, because, it was a very long time before I shared who he was, but she did. And so far, I've gotten really good response, because people are like trying to figure out who he is. I also think it's really fun. It was a fun thing to do, is to show who his character is just by his actions. Just like scripture talks about us, living out our life, living out as Christians, and showing people, and not having to tell them, but they can see that we're followers of Christ. So I thought it was fun just to let people fall in love with him and root for him, just by watching him go through his day and seeing what he does without being told that he's this or he's that kind of thing. So I just wanted to experiment and see what happened. And I did have a lot of fun with him. He's probably one of my favorites so far.
Well, I think it was a good way to do it, because as fans, and I'm a big romantic suspense reader too. Don't know why I don't write it when I read it so much. So it was a nice twist on that. And I think that's what Rebecca and I both appreciated about the character. And then our heroine, Autumn,
Mhm.
I love that name. And she's battling a lot as we meet
Yeah.
her, besides legacy in a sense, and besides the
Mhm.
tragedy of her mother and losing her mother and stuff. And then whatever the town council is trying to oust her out of her job. So she's like, I can't get a break right now.
Well, conflict, right?
Yeah.
Throw everything at them. I had come across an article about exactly what she's going through, and I'm like, hey, I'm always like looking for ideas as my workshop, and that was just an idea I kept, and it just was kind of a subplot in this book. So I utilize everything I come across. So I thought it was good just to bump it up a bit. She's not just doing her job, but she's battling to keep her job.
Right. Right, which
Yeah.
adds the measure of it. And of course the big crime wave hits Shadow Gap while she's trying to keep her job,
Yep.
and not know it. So it's like, okay, ratchet it up for us there, Elizabeth. Come on. But no, but I like that. But she was still a real character. She was still you could relate to her. I don't relate to a lot of female cops, because it's like, man, they've got ambition and they've got drive like that.
It's
But
hard, and they're so tough, and I'm not tough like that. Yeah, so I actually struggle with writing those characters, because I know we're supposed to write strong women, and I mean, we're all strong. All of us are here strong, but do we have to be strong like a man to be strong? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So I have a hard time, but I wanted to make her relatable. And so when you were dealing with family issues or whatever, and we all have to deal with that, right? Then I think that we can relate to that. So I'm glad that worked too. Sounds like.
I think it was neat to her because she was she would, she had that whole persona that she was trying to keep up. And I think it was a little bit more like, yeah, I'm a woman, but I can do this job like as well as, my
Right.
father did it, as well as this guy that you're wanting to put in my place. I can do this job. And then it was nice to see her relax with Greer and actually like be herself, because she had this whole persona that she was as the police chief, and then she would change, and she fought against that so much, because like she'd slip into it and then she'd realize it and then she'd pull back and then she'd slip into it and then she'd pull back. And I felt like it was a pretty natural push and pull though, because she did have that, you had enough motivation on both sides of it to really make it work. And it was, because sometimes you read those books that they'll just invent things that for the reason for the romance not to work. I don't think you didn't have to do that because you had all these things in place, so that was really good.
Yeah, I think romantic suspense is probably, to me, my way of thinking, one of the hardest genres to write, because you've got the suspense and everything's got to be fast paced, but you have to make time for the romance. It's got to be believable, and you can't, like you said, be inventing things. It's got to be something that the readers are going to buy into. So it's really, it can be really tough, and I feel like with every book I try my best to do that, but I'm sure that some readers might think I miss the mark sometimes, because I don't know, can you hit it every time with everyone? You can't, it's not possible to do that, but just try to hit it with the
Everybody has
most
their own
people.
idea of what that looks like too, so then you're bringing your own ideas into it, and then if it doesn't go exactly the way, if that character doesn't act the way I would act, or the other reader would act,
Right.
then it's like, well, what are they doing? Why are they doing that?
I think
But
that I think I haven't, I mean, I have a couple of the books that are, oh, character acting books, screenwriting kind of books, or maybe just I can't even remember what they are, but in a sense, when you're writing, you have to be acting, you have to put yourself into the character, and you have to be acting, and right, it has to feel right. It has to feel like this is what this character would do. And so, I mean, I think it's beneficial for writers to actually read those kind of books so that they can become the character and be acting it out in their stories. Right? Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Because I think you can get a lot from watching actors and whatever the situation. If they're in a tense situation, it's a suspense movie or whatever.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Those nuances. I'm a big movie buff, so I
Oh,
can.
me too. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Good stuff. Have you always written romantic suspense, or when you first wanted to start writing after you left corporate America, right? And decided to
Yeah.
pursue writing? Was it romantic suspense from the get-go?
No, really. I mean, it's kind of complicated. I spent in my teenage years, I read all of the Gothic romance. I think we all probably all did, because romantic suspense, because that's kind of what was out there. Victoria Holt, Phyllis Whitney, the Bronte sisters. But at some point in my 20s, I fell in love with reading Bodie Taney novels, World War II novels. And if you think about it, those are suspense novels too. But I fell in love with historical novels. And so I wanted to write historical. And I pitched that probably the first couple of 2 or 3 years that I went to ACFW. But my daughter, she was just probably 12, 13, had asked me to write her a dragon story. And so for fun, I wrote a dragon story, and my family was like, this is way better than your stuff. So I entered it in what was the noble theme before it became the Genesis, and then it finaled. And so I'm like, hey, so I kind of went that direction, because I love fantasy and science fiction. I love all genres. I love them. But I went that direction for about 2 years. This was early on, before Christian publishers were really publishing any of that at all, and I pitched to Steve Lobby. Remember, he was the agent that would take fantasy and science fiction and all that. But after 2 years of that, I was like, okay, I'm done. So we ended up getting my first book published was a contemporary romance for Heart Song Presents. And it was just because Barbara was doing the state anthologies. And so they were asking, if you know an author, let's bring new authors in. And so Lisa Harris and Lena Dooley brought me into their group, and that was my first book. But I remember when Tracy Peterson emailed me and said, do you have this manuscript ready? Because she wanted to see it. I'm like, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's contemporary romance. I don't want to write that. I don't want to write it. But I did, I took 6 weeks and I did nothing but write this book. And my husband would open the door and throw food at me, because we had little babies, and he was out watching them. And so anyway, that was my first, I entered the world of publishing with a contemporary romance. But Janice Thompson, and she was at the conference, she reviewed it, and she said that it had mystery and suspense elements, and I was like, hey, it does. And so I realized that everything I was writing in the contemporary romance for Heartsong included mystery and suspense. And so it took me probably many books and years to figure out who I am as a writer. I don't know if it's like that for everybody, but it was like that for me. And then I kind of found my niche and my voice. I don't have a historical voice. That's the other thing. Your voice has got to work for a certain genre. And maybe I love to read it, but I couldn't really write it. And so romantic suspense, it is.
There you go.
Is that too TMI?
No, actually, I love that, because I think that's an encouragement for other writers. That's another thing we tried to, as Rebecca and I are writers. And Rebecca, in fact, you and Rebecca probably need to talk after we're done, because Rebecca has written historical, which I'm not sure is her true voice, but she's good at it. But fantasy, and she's finding her voice too. And I'm on a self-discovery thing too. But it's important for writers to realize it's okay to even switch genres. You may try writing to market, and it takes time to find your voice.
It does. It can be painful, and then at some point you have to stick with it and build your audience. And if you have an audience, if you switch to something else, depending on who you are,
right.
You could lose all of your readers, right? Because maybe they don't like to read that kind of book. So it can be tough.
Yeah, it's a risk. So for any readers out there who thinks life is easy here with writing, it's not. It's blood, sweat, and tears and and stuff. But it's a passion. It's something I don't think we can not write.
Exactly.
That makes sense and stuff. No, that was actually a great answer to the question, because I think it's good to know that we're not alone on this journey. Others are struggling, even if it's not writing, whatever your passion is in life. Okay, let's not wax poetic. I'm in a nonfiction class right now. No,
I love it. You can keep going. You're encouraging. It's inspiring.
Well, everybody's purpose, everybody wants to know, like, what's my purpose? Why am I doing this? I have a calling now, what am I supposed to do with it? And, purpose is so individualized, and it's so hard to find, and I think it's good that you can't be afraid to do the, experiment and try different things, because you just don't know. I mean, I'm a track coach too. I just got home from track practice, and I was just telling my kids we have a meet tomorrow, and I said, all right, we're going to run people are going to run different events. And they're all like, why? And I'm like, because you never know if you're going to be better at the one I'm going to put you in tomorrow than you were at the one you ran in Tuesday. And you never will if you're afraid to go out and try it. And it works like that with writing and anything, really. I mean, you just have to be able to set aside those preconceived ideas and notions that, I can only do this is where I fit, because maybe not, maybe really you fit like in the middle of this box and half of this box instead of in this particular one. I don't know. So yeah, I think it's really good advice, and it was really good to hear that other people have that same thing going on. So
well, and to tag on to that, you were saying fit in this box and a little bit of this other box, since that not only finding my voice, but find my unique romantic suspense voice, right? My own kind of stories. And as I mentioned, my passion is settings, and just so it's kind of a little bit of adventure too. So I kind of have man versus man and man versus nature in every single book. And so I know not every reader is going to like that, but right now, I don't see myself writing just a citified police procedure kind of story. I mean, there's plenty of those out there. I just want to do what makes me happy and what I find joy in writing.
So
that's really good.
Yeah. So you're going to write book 3 or writing book 3 of the Missing in Alaska series.
Yes.
We're back in Alaska. Are we back in Shadow Gap or is it somewhere else?
Well, we're everything book 2 is going to be out in October, Shadows at Dusk, and I don't know if you saw that one, but and everything is yeah, Shadow Gap is the centerpiece, but we're talking about Southeast Alaska, and so I like to move around, so it's the same characters, but they travel and they do stuff within the same region, and the book 2 is the bush pilot. So in fact,
That's right.
let me pull this up really quick. Oh, hold on, I was going to show you something. I got the galleys today, and oh, I shouldn't leave where I was. I'm just about finished. Let me go back up here. So this book, I told my editor, this is a book, a story about a bush pilot in Alaska. Okay. So there are certain expectations that come with that. So I actually put at the beginning of the book, I'm scrolling down here so I can find it. Thank you for your patience. I said, I couldn't write a story about a bush pilot in Alaska without taking my readers on a wild and crazy ride. So I invite you to strap in tight and hold on. I just wanted to say, okay. I mean, I really, really pushed the edge here, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's bush pilot. And so we've got to do things. We've got to go places. We've got to have a lot of adventure. So,
plus, if I remember her, she had quite the interesting personality, even though she was only on the page in book 1 for not a lot, but
yeah. And then I don't know if you read the teaser. If you haven't, you should go read the teaser for book 2, and it'll have a little blurb with Carrie in it, and kind of.
Right. So that's Shadows at Dusk, and when does that come out?
In October.
In October.
Right. And I'm working on book 3, and I don't have anything to say about it right now because it's
okay. But there will be a book 3.
Yes, yeah,
that's the exciting thing.
Due in 6 weeks.
so sometime in 2024, I presume, is book 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you want to do something in Washington State and Puget Sound too, right?
I have put
series
a proposal in. Yeah, another proposal in. So it's Alaska is amazing, and I know it's a very strong proposal according to my publisher. That
lawn guys. I don't know if you can hear their leaf blowers or something right outside my window. Just show that. Sorry.
That's hilarious. But I don't feel like I want to stay in Alaska forever because there's only so many. To me, so many of these stories that we can do. We need to move on. I need to move on. I mean, maybe I could and do something different, but it's hard to I guess top Alaska. That's a hard one to do right there, but everybody's doing it. So I feel like, okay, now I can go out and do something different, something new.
Nothing wrong with Washington State.
You write this Puget Sound series, and then you somehow find a way to bridge the two and make.
I always try to connect. I have a character like Trevor West in Shadows at Dusk is from the last book in the Rocky Mountain Courage series. He is a side character in Critical Alliance and one of the detectives, and so he comes in. So they all have somebody, some way that they're connected. In fact, Don't Keep Silent, the main character there is one of the side characters in the last book in Common Justice. So yeah, they're all connected like that, very, very loosely. I don't do a lot of really tight. Everybody writes a different kind of series connections, and mine are just kind of loose. I try to have fun and not tie myself into, restrain my, too many, box myself in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So give myself the freedom to do what I want to do. The next series, that is If Rebel Buys It, is set in a storm watching lodge, and people are coming there for different reasons, and they're connected like that. So
anyway. That sounds fun.
It does sound like fun.
I was a storm chaser in college.
Oh my goodness, what?
Very, very short career. But I did do it a couple times. It was interesting. So I had friends in the meteorology department. So I hitched a ride a couple times. That's my claim to fame. I didn't do much of anything with it, but it was fun. So
yeah, she's fascinating. She's totally fascinating.
So did you ever go to a storm watching lodge?
I did not. I'm sorry, I cannot be a help there, but no. It was mostly tornadoes here because we were in the Midwest, so it was like that's the kind of storms it was. And we chased a couple of them. So
I lived in Texas, and of course, Becky knows too, but yeah, Tornado Alley. So I know all about those.
Yeah,
yeah.
they're fun. Anyway, all right. Well, I think I have a feeling I have a feeling the three of us could sit here and chat all day long. I think we're going to wrap it up. Again, if you want to learn more about Elizabeth, you can go to her website at Elizabeth Goddard, and that's GODDARD.com. And find Cold Light of Day, find her previous books on there, the Rocky Mountain Courage series and the Uncommon Justice series.
My cover here.
There we go. Thank you. And we look forward to Shadows at Dusk coming out in October. So keep an eye out for that. Get the pre-orders going when it's ready for pre-order. And do that. So Elizabeth, we thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Any parting words, advice, anything you want to say?
I enjoyed it, and you guys keep up the good work and spreading the word about good books.
Thanks. We appreciate that. And Rebecca, you keep running with your students. Have fun at track.
Yeah.
Yeah. She says exhaustedly. So.
Yeah, I would be too.
And stuff. That's it. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you again to Elizabeth, and we will see you next time on Rebecca and Rebecca, where we love books.
Bye.